We are in Lightroom, and we're going to first make a collection of images that we're going to take with us into Photoshop. So I would recommend just making a regular collection unless you have color-coded everything or starred everything in your catalog to be related only to this assignment. Then it makes sense to do a smart collection. Otherwise, I would make a regular collection, and let's call it Virtual Gallery Obscura at CCSF. I'm not wanting to nest it inside a set. I just want to make it out there by itself. And I'm going to select all the images. These are a little bit random, I know, that are going to go in this gallery. And I'm going to click inside the image and drag them over. And remember, you should have, a minimum of 12 or more images for your final project. So you're going to put all the pictures from your final project in here. Okay. Then if we select them all together, we can right click and we can say Edit, Open as Layers in Photoshop. This is pretty cool because it will stack all the images together in Photoshop at once, but it doesn't necessarily create a smart object if we do it this way. We can convert them to a smart object later, which means we can edit the size. But if we do a smart object now in Photoshop, it will allow us also to edit the color and contrast and so forth. I'll show you what I mean. Last week we did this. We brought them in one by one as a smart object. Oops, I should select Smart Object. Last week we brought them in as a smart object. So when you edit images as a smart object one at a time, it gives you this logo from the beginning, and it allows you to continue your editing in Adobe Camera Raw. So it carries forward any editing that you've done in Lightroom and allows you to continue that editing in Adobe Camera Raw. Let me show you with another image that actually has more editing on it. Reed's image here. So we've done a lot of editing to this image in Lightroom, the image of halftone. And we should be able to see those edits in Photoshop. So here we've done quite a bit to the HSL. So if we double click, we've added vignettes. We've done a lot of editing in Lightroom. That editing carries forward in Adobe Camera Raw. So the one image smart object workflow maintains the ability to correct the raw image. That means you do it one at a time. Then we want to click and drag the image into our template. So I clicked and dragged the image with my Move tool. I'll just repeat that. I have my Move tool, that's V on your keyboard for move. Click and hold and drag it to the tab of the template behind it. I'm still depressing the mouse. Click and hold and go back. And it is asking me if I want to preserve the color space of this document. I'm going to say OK. Because remember, this document, which is our gallery wall, our 20-inch gallery wall, we went into color settings last week and we decided that it would be a ProPhoto document. So when you click and drag things into it, it will ask you to convert that into the same color space. Now we have this giant image and we need to decide how big we'd like to make it. Each square denotes 1 foot, and a typical image is centered at about 60 inches, 55 to 60 inches. So the center of the image might go right somewhere like that. So to make another guide mark, you take your Move tool, put your mouse into the ruler, and click and hold and drag down another guide. So if we wanted something that's 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 48 inches. Okay, 48 plus 12 is what? 60. This is 60 inches. If we wanted the middle of our image to be somewhere here, we could make another guide. And then, obviously it's different with such a large picture like this one, so we're going to need to scale it down. So this is the middle of our image. We're going to scale it down. I'm holding down the Shift key to keep the aspect ratio correct. This is an interesting image because it's so long. And then you're going to decide what the dimensions of the image should be. Standard frame sizes, if you look up the standard frame size for photography, are all different. Okay? Here's a guide here with Shutterfly. Picture frames for 4x6, that's a little small. 8x10. So an 8x10 image commonly becomes an 11x14 or a 12x14 with its matting and frame. A 16x20 image quickly becomes a 20x24 or 24x28 with matting and frame. This is just one way to save money if you buy frames that are standard like this and print your image to fit inside. You certainly can go with custom framing, but that starts getting expensive. A 20x30 image would be a 24x36 matting and frame. So let's say that we want to do a 24x28. What would that be like? So 24 is going to be 2, one of these equals 12 inches or a foot. So I would scale it down. Command T is the keyboard shortcut for transform, and I would scale this down to be, I'm having a little, it should scale. I'm having a little problem here. I think that's a bug, but we would scale it down to be 2 feet, which would be 24, okay? So you want to kind of calculate the size of your image and then maybe put a guide mark right at about 55 or 57, between 55 and 56 for the center of your image. And that's with traditional framed images that are smaller than 20x30. Anything bigger than that, right? You might even want to go, anything bigger than that might even want to be unframed. And so there are a lot of different ways to present unframed work, especially if it's oversized. We use bully clips. There are these metal clips in the gallery on the top and bottom to weight and stretch the image. Okay? You could even do one wall with small framed prints and another wall with something printed large. Remember that our printers go up to about 44 inches wide. Okay? So that's how to, clicking and dragging one image at a time allows you to maintain the option of editing in ACR. Okay? That may or may not be important to you because this is really just a template for placement. The images don't have to look perfect. If the images don't need to look perfect, the fastest way to get all your pictures into Photoshop is to select them all, right-click, and choose Open as Layers in Photoshop. This is a way to create one file where all the images come in as layers. It'll take a minute because they're large. However, these images will not be smart objects, but I'm going to show you how to deal with that. It's pretty cool. So these images should all come into the same Photoshop file as various layers, and they did. In order to get them into our template, I'm going to shift-click on all of them to select them all and choose New Group from Layers. Okay, this allows me to put them all in one folder. Okay, and I can turn this whole folder into a smart object. It's just going to take a minute. And the smart object is going to allow me to do everything a smart object can do except for edit them in Adobe Camera Raw. Okay? Actually, I didn't want to do that. I take that back. Let's get them into the, I undid the smart object there. Let's get them into the template first. Okay? So I'm going to click and hold on this layer group. Go over up to the tab of the template, wait till it pops forward. I'm still holding down my mouse. Bring the images down, release the mouse, say OK to the questions about color space, and then here they are. Okay? And then instead of making a smart object out of the group, you're going to want to go and do it one by one. So, you know, you can choose which process that you want to use, but look what happens if I double click on this image. It won't take me into Adobe Camera Raw. It takes me into a separate Photoshop document instead, where you can still make adjustments, but you can no longer make adjustments to the raw file because there is no raw file. Okay? But I can still turn all the eyeballs off, and I can still scale the images one by one. So a big part of the smart objects is scaling. What other benefit did you see? Okay, when you watch that video, you remember? Another benefit to smart objects? It was so long. Well, one thing is if you wanted to add a little special effect, like this is up to you, like maybe a little drop shadow. You have to zoom in to even see it because it's so slight, right? Like that. And then you can change it by double clicking on it and change the angle and the strength and the size and how far from the wall it pops out. Keyboard shortcut for hiding the rulers. Do you remember? Command, yes, you're right, Command R. And keyboard shortcut for hiding the guides. Command : right. I'm going to turn the rulers back on. Now this looks kind of weird. It's like, doesn't this picture look too low? It does when we're looking at it, but remember this is a 10-foot wall. And most people are viewing things at about a little under, 6 feet tall. So it really should be okay because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The top of your picture is at 6 feet. And remember the middle of your pictures, depending on how big it is, should be at around 55 to 60 inches. Okay, so don't be surprised if this seems a little big. Go into the real gallery or print your images as thumbnails and put them into the miniature that we built to see more of a 3D representation. Okay, because looking at it flat is kind of fools your eye a little bit. Then I could go ahead and turn the other layer on, turn the other eyeball on, select that layer, turn this one off. Well, that one didn't make it. Turn this one on, Min. Command T, scale it down. Maybe I want to make them the same height. But how big is that? That ends up being almost a 4-foot wide image, right? So that's probably not going to work. If I have a vertical and a horizontal next to each other, where do I line them up? On the top or the bottom? In the center, that's right. So let's say this one was, now that one's fixed. This one is a 24 by 36. Let's say I want this one to be a 24 by 36, right? So 36 is going to be 3 rows by 2. It's going to be a little bit more like a, 24 by 36, a little bit longer probably. It's not going to be exact. And then I'm going to hang it so that it's center. Okay? Can you break the convention and align them on the top? Yeah, I mean, this is a traditional way of hanging a show. But you could do some crazy stuff. If you look at Pier 24's website, they do a lot of salon style, okay? So it used to be that you could hang things all around the wall in different shapes even. Like this is a very 19th century style of hanging things, or even before that. This is the way the painters used to hang things on the wall. I'm trying to grab the picture here. It's not. Yeah, I moved the guides. Oh, yes, you can lock the guides. Thank you, Karam. That's what you said, right? If you accidentally find that that the guides are nudging, you can lock the guides. Right here, lock guides. Okay, so that they don't move. So if I wanted to put this one back, and that one should go right about here. View, lock guides. Okay, so you can propose anything you want to. I wouldn't go too low to the ground just because it's hard to see. Okay, I'm not sure why this keeps turning off. Having a little problem with the connection. But an inspirational website is definitely Pier 24. And kind of taking a look at how they install some of the work. Because it's a very large space, they use a lot of the wall. These are very large images. But you see there's the grid example. How far off of the floor do you think that hangs? Maybe 2 feet? Is that your guess, Dominic? 2 feet? 1.5 feet maybe? Yeah. But here, in here, the spacing's interesting, right? The relationship of the spacing between the images. Definitely they want us to be able to see these almost as one image. So this is a good place to look for inspiration. This is an interesting relationship here on the left-hand side. Here they use the corner to draw our attention. This is Reneke Dijkstra's work, I think. No, maybe not. We didn't see that room when we went. So the spacing is not necessarily even between images in every single room. And you can also see past exhibitions here. Some more examples where they really, they're doing some interesting relationships with some of the pictures. This is Extreme Grid. And here it's like a little visual story. It's like using the wall not just as a typical display, but like a piece of sheet music, a rhythmic narrative. So, You know, you're turning into me 13 by 19 or larger, but this exercise gives you the ability to imagine something that where cost has no limit. So really have fun with it. I encourage you. Okay? You can repaint the walls. Absolutely. Why not?